Wes Moore will win the Democratic nomination. He faces off against Republican Dan Cox this November. Thousands of mail-in ballots, though, are still being counted. Adam Longo has been following this race for governor closely. Ads, what do we know about this projected win?
So, Les, thousands of ballots are still being counted. They'll continue to be counted for weeks, especially in Montgomery County, the largest county in the state. But even at this point, with all those ballots outstanding, CBS News is projecting that Wes Moore will be the Democrat on the ballot come November. The political newcomer beat out 8 other candidates, including other frontrunners: Tom Perez, a former Obama White House official and former chair of the DNC, and Peter Franchot, Maryland's comptroller. Now, CBS News' decision desk tells us they made this projection after seeing that enough mail-in ballots to be confident that Tom Perez would not be able to catch up with Moore. They said Moore did better with in-person voters on Election Day, and the CBS team says the mail-in votes are largely split between Perez and Franchot, which would make it hard for either of them to try and overtake Moore.
Okay, so we're talking about projected results here, and like we said, there are still votes that need to be counted, but some of Moore's opponents are responding.
Right, and responding in different ways. This was a big field, 9 candidates on the ballot, so let's focus on those other frontrunners real quick, Tom Perez and Peter Franchot. So Franchot, in this statement, has conceded the race. In his statement, congratulating Moore, thanking his volunteers, and he added that he's, quote, committed to ensuring Maryland is positioned to navigate the economic challenges ahead in his role as comptroller. Tom Perez, on the other hand, is still waiting for the rest of the ballots to be counted. His campaign released a statement saying the race is too close to call. And they added that Perez flipped multiple counties between Election Day and yesterday when the mail-in ballot counting began. They highlighted that as many as 80,000 votes remain in Montgomery County and as many as 300,000 remain unaccounted for across the state. But he would have to win a large percentage of those uncounted ballots in order to overtake Moore.
And it sounds like it may be harder for him to eclipse at this point. You know, you said Moore is a political newcomer, so what do we know about him?
Yeah, never held political office before. He's a combat veteran, an author, small business owner. He's also the former CEO of one of the nation's largest anti-poverty organizations, and he seems to be taking that experience and making it the focus of his campaign. Now, our Larry Miller talked with Moore in the lead up to the primary, and Moore told him that one of his priorities, if elected, would be to help Maryland residents get through this economic crisis.
We've got to focus on getting people back to work. And that means doing things like fixing a broken child care system, which we are going to prioritize. It means job reskilling and job retraining and getting people into jobs of now and also jobs of the future. But it also does mean providing a level of economic relief.
All right, so let's talk about what comes next. What are some of the things that we might see during this race between Moore and the Republican nominee, Dan Cox, ahead of November?
Yeah, I think just foreshadowing it there, what we heard from Moore, economics are going to be a key thing, talking about who was the candidate that's best positioned to tackle issues like inflation, keeping corporations in Maryland, bringing more corporations to Maryland. So who is the better candidate positioned to do that? These pocketbook issues that propelled Governor Larry Hogan to victory back in 2014. But another important point here is which candidate is going to be the most effective at bringing together their party after this primary. When you look at Dan Cox, you have Governor Larry Hogan, who has called him a QAnon whack job and said that he would not be voting for him. Maryland, a state where you only have about 24% of people who are registered Republicans. You need Democratic votes in Maryland if you're going to be elected. And Leslie, Democratic voters not really wrapping their arms around a candidate who has received the full embrace of former President Trump.
Yeah, and there's still many more months before November, so we will see how all of this goes in the lead up to the general.
You bet.